Buon pomeriggio to our audience in the United States. Buonasera to our friends connected from Italy. Benvenuti a tutti to our first event of 2021. I'm Francesca Casazza, the Executive Director of the Italian Cultural Society, and I have the pleasure to open this interesting meeting, a conversation with the renowned journalist and author Beppe Severgnini. Here with me, you are seeing Dario Penzo, Marketing and Events Coordinator.
Buonasera, buonasera a tutti. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm glad to see there's the audience. There's several hundred people, so thank you so much for coming today. Please remember that if you have any question, you can use the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and we will answer your question at the end of the presentation. Welcome again and enjoy.
And to lead the conversation, I'm pleased to introduce you to Sara Forden, our friend and board member, journalist. She's a Bloomberg News editor, where she leads a team that covers lobbying in Washington, and most recently, the rollout of aid to small businesses struggling to survive the pandemic. Sara Forden lived in Milano for 22 years, and she's also the author of the book, The House of Gucci, published in the year 2000 with HarperCollins, recounting the family saga behind the story of the powerful Gucci's brand. The book is now the basis of a movie slated to be directed by Ridley Scott and starring Lady Gaga as Patrizia Gucci. Sara, grazie per dedicarci questo pomeriggio.
Grazie a tutti, buonasera a tutti.
And now, Beppe Severgnini doesn't need an introduction. We all know his successful career and his work starting with Il Giornale, La Voce di Intro Montanelli, La Gazzetta dello Sport, The Economist, and of course the New York Times, Il Corriere della Sera. And he published over 20 books, and I got to know him as a writer thanks to a friend who has a gift for my adventure in Washington, D.C., started in 2003. He gave me this book, Untitled in America, and I was immediately captivated by the ironic and methodical examination of Americans that he did in this book. And I'm particularly attached to this book because it also has a signature from Beppe Severgnini in 2006, when he was the honorary guest of a lunch organized by the association Le Dive. But now, ladies and gentlemen, Beppe Severgnini in conversation with Sara Forden.
So welcome, Beppe. Welcome, everybody, members and friends in the United States and abroad. We're so excited to be talking with you and sharing conversation, Beppe, about your new book, Neoitaliani, which came out in Italy in the fall and is slated to come out in the US this fall with Vintage Press, which is an imprint of Penguin and Random House. So Neoitaliani explores how Italy and Italians have been changed by the pandemic, and mostly for the better in Beppe's view. As we know, Italy became a model for how to deal with the lockdown, struggling with the crisis, the first country after China to really be hit by the devastation of this pandemic, but also for the Italian spirit in responding to a crisis. And we all have our memories of the singing and the banging of pots from the balconies and rooftops. So we're also going to ask you, Beppe, about your view on how Italy is doing as the pandemic continues and where you think we're going to be able to end up as it moves forward. I also think that your ability to explain Italy and Italians to us is so augmented by the fact that you have lived and traveled so extensively abroad, because you've been able to really pick out what's distinct and unique about the Italian character and then put it in context of other countries and other people. I just wanted to share, when I first traveled to Italy in the 80s as a student, the book to read about Italy at that time was The Italians by Luigi Barzini, which was published in 1964. And that explored the development and evolution of post-war Italy. But your bestseller, La Testa degli Italiani, which was published in English under the title La Bella Figura, offers a modern answer to that. And I thought it would be fun to imagine a conversation, what a conversation would be like between the two of you if Barzini were still alive. So one question I wanted to ask you, Beppe, is what would you want to ask him and what would you want him to ask you if you could talk to him today?
Well, thank you, first of all. Thank you, Sara. I've been quiet because I had plenty of chance to talk. I knew I had plenty of chance to talk later. So I've been quiet and listening. And to have a journalist who listens is most unusual, believe me. And thank you, Dario. Thank you, Erminia, what you said. Please bring my best saluti to Ennio Carretto, what you said about two colleagues talking saying 9 things about each other is pretty unusual, absolutely spot on. And thank you, of course, Francesca, for setting this up. This idea of sort of meeting here was born in Camogli in September last year, of all places, and I'm glad to be here. What shall I say? That Washington and I go back a long way. Like my very first foreign assignment in America was in Washington when Mikhail Gorbachev visited Ronald Reagan back in '87. I was 30, and my hair was black, believe it or not. And then I lived there, I wrote books, and I've been back many times. And I chose Washington, D.C. over New York City. When I was appointed as a correspondent in the US, I could, they asked me, where would you like to go? And I said, Washington, D.C. And I'm so glad that choice 35 years ago. Now, thank you for what you said about the book. Let me show you a couple of things. The good thing about this, it's so nice. I've been meeting people in Washington, D.C., at Georgetown University, at the Italian Embassy, in many other places, in a pizzeria with my beloved Italians. I guess it was like 2000, like we're talking 20, 21 years ago. So each of those sort of meetings, I have fond memories. We are all far away, we know why. So it's no point moaning and complaining, but there is just one tiny advantage, that because we are from home or offices, we have a lot of stuff to show, which we cannot bring around. So let me start with this. This is a mug. Can you see it? The Diva gave me in 2006, and I still have it, didn't break it, painted, it says here, by Maria Luisa Silos Labini. You see, souvenir, mug, lovely memory of a meeting. Then I have the book we've been talking about, which is Neoitaliani, it's here. And before I answer your question about Barzini, which is a difficult one, I have a suggestion, Sara. Why don't we start reading something from Neoitaliani, sort of to lift our spirits? I tell you why, because you know the books, but some people, most people probably won't or haven't read it yet. I hope they will once it's in English, when it's going to be in English, but now it's only in Italian, came out a few months ago, like 4 months ago. Neoitaliani is not a book about the pandemic. It's not about COVID. Of course, I decided, and I think I was right, that a pandemic, like a big crisis, like a war, like, think of what America went through in the last 20 years, from 9/11 to the big financial crisis, and this is another one. It's not important to decide which one was more shocking. We're talking about 3 things that we could do without, to be honest. And COVID hit all countries, not only the United States. Italy, first democracy in the world, the first country in Europe, and of course, the rest of Europe and the US and Mexico and South America, and you name it. And a big crisis is like a lie detector. Like the truth comes out about people, about relation among people. All of us, we have learned something about our partners, about our children, about our families, most of the time good things, about our friends. It was like a natural division. The people we didn't really care about. And to be honest, they didn't really care about us. And the people we cared about. It was not like, okay, I'll sit down here and I make a list in and out. No, it's just natural. You know, in a crisis, relations come out, the nature of a relation. The same thing with nations, Sara. Nations come out as they are. America, we're going to talk about that later, I guess. America, the American spirit came out one way or another, some good, some less so. The British, the French, the German, the Italians. I'm not saying they were perfect, but I know that emergencies is one thing Italian, I wouldn't say like, because we don't like emergency, but it is a fact that in an emergency, when we have in Italian we say le spalle al muro, sort of how do you say it? Back to the wall. That's a position that Italians love most. We do. I mean, of course, we have to get away from the bloody wall at some point, but that position is, is a position we give our best, and it happened again. In fact, in the spring, we did so well, and that's what that's the beginning of my book. Less so in the summer, less so in the autumn and in the winter. But because when the emergency sort of not receded, but sort of dwindled, and Italians, and it was a matter of organizing and rebuilding and less good. Let's put it.
Well, so this
but
is
the emergency.
Big theme that I want to get into with you, which is how Italians respond to crisis. But just to get started, let's look at the screen behind you, which shows that Neoitaliani is written in the form of a manifesto, and it offers us 50 reasons to be Italian. So Beppe, I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, but no, I was getting there, Sara. Thank you for introducing this. The point is, the book is about this. Is a manifesto, 50 reasons to be Italians. We're going to read a few now, you and I, and thank you for suggesting this. It's great. Those 50 reasons, they don't mean we are the best in the world. I'm too old and I travel too much to know that there is no best in the world. The good things about the world is that every country, every nation, every culture has got some amazing things and something that are less amazing. But Italians have really some strong points, some strength. We have shortcomings too, but I needed to sort of cheer up. And so I decided to concentrate on our strength and not on our weakness. And so I wrote, those are the 50 pillars. A writer, much better writer than I was, once wrote a book called The 7 Pillars of Wisdom. And this is the 50 pillars of being Italian. That's why it's so nice to talk about this with you and the people that are listening now, and the Italian society and the Italians in DC and the Italians all over. I heard from Colorado, from the UK. Okay, let's go. I put them at the opening on the book. Can you see that? Let's see.
Move it forward a little more.
Okay.
No,
it's not important. It's not important. Well.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Much better. Because you don't have the virtual background. That's why it works better. Anyway, and so I'm gonna start reading the first, and I'll read Italian, and you read the translation. The translation is by Tony Sugar, who's an amazing translator. He lives in San Diego, California. He's my translator. He's translated my previous book, the one before this in America, was called Off the Rails. here about my train travels. And Tony, we're already working on the American translation. So the list of the 50 reasons is ready. That's why. And the translation, which you're going to read, Sara, is from Tony Sugar.
Fantastic. I remember Tony. I don't know if he's with us today, but it's been a long time. So give him regards.
I will. Okay, let's go. 50 reasons to be Italian. Number 1. 50 motivi per essere italiani. 1. Perché quando tutti si aspettano che ci agitiamo, restiamo calmi.
Because when everyone expects us to lose our cool, we find our strength.
2. Perché siamo fragili quando pensiamo di essere forti e viceversa.
Because we're vulnerable when we think we're tough and vice versa.
3. Perché sappiamo essere seri, ma lo ammettiamo malvolentieri.
Because we can be serious about things, but we hate to admit it.
4. Perché siamo imprevedibili se non diventiamo inaffidabili.
Because we're unpredictable, but not unreliable.
5. Perché siamo capaci di bei gesti, sui buoni comportamenti stiamo lavorando.
Because we make gallant gestures. Good behavior, we're still working on that.
6. Perché nel mondo ti guardano, in Italia ti vedono.
Because the rest of the world looks at you, Italians see you.
7. Perché troviamo eroi insospettabili.
Because we find unexpected heroes.
8. Perché impariamo, volenti o nolenti.
Because we do learn one way or another.
9. Perché abbiamo visto quasi tutto e il resto lo immaginiamo.
Because we've seen practically everything. The rest we imagine.
10, e qua ci fermiamo, 10 perché arriva il momento in cui spegniamo il risentimento.
Because in time, we let our resentments go.
There are 50 of those. And Sara, thank you. You did really well. You're an actress, apart from writer. So we're going to end this meeting today reading the number 40 to number 50. So we could do the end.
Hopefully everybody will be able to read them themselves when they get your book.
Yeah.
So tell us, Beppe,
behind me, can you see the virtual background? They're all there.
Yeah.
I did table math with those.
Tell me why you decided to write Neoitaliani and what were some of the most important things that you learned while writing it?
I decided to write Neoitaliani because I knew that La Bella Figura is here. Or is it here? La Bella Figura came out in 2016 and the original Italian, it was this, La Testa degli Italiani, and 15 years is a long time. And I knew that I needed to update my self-portrait, national self-portrait. But somehow I said, okay, I'm going to do this one. And then I wrote a book about Berlusconi, I wrote a book about the Italian language, a book about train travel, a book about the younger generation, a book, you name it. I didn't really, why? I mean, does the world need another Beppe's book about the Italians? Not really, to be honest. And then the pandemic convinced me that it was time and it was right to try again the portrait that the original Italian, La Testa degli Italiani, was 2005 and Neoitaliani is 2020. In America, La Bella Figura, which is a translation, is 2006 and Neoitaliani, when it's gonna come out for vintage in the fall, is gonna be 2021, so 15 years again. And let me add one thing. Let me boast, I'm a journalist and I'm a male, and so boasting is very natural to me. That book in America did so well. I mean, it was actually a New York Times bestseller. It says so on the cover, New York Times bestseller. And the book, I mean, it happened to another book before mine in the nonfiction, and there was Italians, The Italians by Luigi Barzini, back I think 66 or 65. So I'm so glad that to share that with him, and for the strange twist of fate, the editor of one of his books, The Europeans, a great book by Luigi Barzini, came out in the early 80s, I think 84. His editor was a very young man, and at the start of his career. And when he closed his career, he told me that before he retired, the last book he edited, he was then a top editor at Doubleday, was my book, La Bella Figura. So he started off with Luigi Barzini, and then I don't think I deserve all this, but I'm so glad. I think it's in a way to show my respect and admiration for a great, not an easy man, to be honest. It was a complicated life, but a super writer and in great intuition. He helped to explain his own nations to the world, which I think is a great honor, is a great privilege, but it's tough.
Yeah. So one of the things that really struck me about Neoitaliani is the optimism. And as you said, you were looking for the strengths, but I'm wondering, is it also maybe an expression of a hopefulness about where you think Italy will emerge from all of this?
I'm an optimist. I think there are people that are optimists and people that are pessimists. I think the optimists are basically, the optimists are simply, I've just lived better. And so it's a good reason to be an optimist. And I've been disappointed often by politics, by things that happen not only in Italy, but even in the States and elsewhere. But I always try to look at the bright side, which doesn't mean in that book, I only say, oh, everything is fine, Italy is great. No, I mean, to be honest, I mean, you can smell that even in those 10 reasons we read, that there is always the other side of things. You read, we are, I don't remember what it was, unpredictable, but beware not to be unreliable. So it's always there, the other side, and the risk,
right? Private
and collective risk of being Italian. But I decided, let's put it this way, very simply, I decided to look, at the half full glass, bicchiere mezzo pieno. Most of the time, journalists look at the part of the glass which is half empty. That's our job. This doesn't work. Criticize, point out. It's right. Journalists have to do that. I've done that a lot. But I think it's time when, especially when I'm wearing my writer's hat, to concentrate on the half of the glass which is full. La metà del bicchiere mezzo pieno. We need it psychologically this year, in 2020 and 2021. I think we all need it. Me as a writer, and I think even my readers, some optimism.
One of the things that I found very interesting and helpful, having moved from Italy, where I lived for 22 years, to the United States, where I've now been back in DC for 10 years, is how many times I've actually looked back to Italy for lessons learned. And, the US has had to deal with terrorism, and we go back and look at how Italy dealt with terrorism in its past. We're dealing with the pandemic, we're dealing with economic crisis. And so I wanted to bring out kind of your section about vulnerability and how we have to be more prepared to deal with the uncertainty in our lives. And at the same time, with how Italians seem to have found a resilience that has given them strength in times of crisis. And we're talking in history, conquerors, invaders, we're talking wars, we're talking terrorism and earthquakes. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the roots of this resilience and how it manifests itself.
Well, I think Italian resilience goes back to our history. We went through, we started with, we had nasty periods and generations that were went through dramatic from the end of the Roman Empire onwards. Every few years we went to something bad. Even recently, 20th century, Italy went, you know, we were a catastrophic Second World War, changing sides, having being allied with the Germans, the most stupid, craziest thing that Mussolini could do, he did it. And then having the Germans inside and the civil war, it was horrific. And in America, I'm glad for my American friends, that never happened. So when you have something like a big shock, things on 9/11, I mean, which was a shock, but it was even more so, it was a shock times two, because nothing remotely similar happened. In Italy, in Europe on the whole, but in Italy for sure, a lot of shocks happened. I mean, there are a huge difference between Berlusconi and Donald Trump, of course. I've been writing about those in the New York Times at least 3 times. I remember the first time was 2015, saying, if you don't want to end up with Donald Trump in the White House, don't do this.
I remember that very well.
Okay, and I'm afraid to say that my American friend did most of those mistakes, and the result, we know what it was. And then I wrote once, it was in the White House, and I wrote once recently about the big difference between the two men, the main one being the Berlusconi, whatever you think of him. And I've been really critical, including write a book called Mamma Mia, Berlusconi Explained for Posterity and Friends Abroad. But at least when he lost, he accepted it, which is a start, at least. Anyway, I brought up Berlusconi and Trump to say that, in a way, in Italy, so many things start. Let me be clear about this. Berlusconi and Trump have a few things in common: obsession with their hair, their wives, younger women, real estate, television, narcissistic, but it stops there. The two men are extremely different. Berlusconi, policy-wise, and moderate. Trump is everything but a moderate, as we all know. But nonetheless, that is not a coincidence. I think Trump, there was some Berlusconi in him, some Mussolini, at least in the way he presented himself. My best American friend, her name is Anne Applebaum. She's a terrific writer.
I know Anne.
We met back in the 80s. Can you imagine, in Poland? She was a very young girl from DC, by the way. Her family is from Washington, DC. Anne and I are really good friends, and we've been in touch and sort of spend holidays together with our families and so on and so forth. And she wrote a terrific piece for The Atlantic recently about the fact that Trump and Berlusconi, there was something similar in the way, in the posture, in the backgrounds, there was something, the cynic side, the settings, not so much the policy, and so on and so forth. And even the signori in the Renaissance and other, there is even some bizarre minor emperors of the late Roman Empire, like Massimino il Traccio. I wrote a piece for Corriere della Sera, reminds me of Trump. So we've seen it all. We started to see small Trumps in the 3rd century. After you look at Massimino's tracks, and he's Commodus, same thing, same characters, in a way. So Italy is wise, is old. We went through a lot of things, and somehow it helped. It also helped that, as I was saying before, Sarah, a crisis, and COVID and a pandemic is a huge crisis. It's like a war in terms of the shock.
Yeah.
It brings out what every country is about. Italy, family relation, personal relation in Italy are there. It's not something in American literature about Italy. They're real. They are there. They're really there, and those relations really helped. And there is a kind of a safety net, which is not public. Is actually Tocqueville would have liked that, to see this sort of network that it was in America once and now in Italy. It really is what it keeps Italy afloat in a time like this. And the inventiveness and some of the things that have been done there, and many other things. So
yeah, in fact, I wanted to ask you, you speak quite a bit about also the infrastructure and the system and what works in Italy and what doesn't work in Italy. And I wanted to ask if you think the fact that there is a public health system that, at least in many regions, is effective, and there is a kind of a social safety net, and, you know, have these things actually helped anchor Italy and the Italians in a way to better face a crisis like this?
Yes, they have. We had a problem because the health system is part of the responsibility of the regions. There are 20 regions in Italy, as every Italian knows, but we're telling this for our American friends. Some of them know, some of them don't. Anyway, we have 20 regions, which are not like your states, the 50 states. In Italy, the regions have less autonomy, but on health, they really are the master of their own fate. And there isn't a provision in the Constitution which says during the pandemic, everything goes back to central state because we have to decide. And so we had a problem there. Sometimes there were misunderstandings, delays, and they're still going on. But it is a fact that the national health system is actually one of the 50 reasons to be Italians. I think it's number 33, perché abbiamo il servizio sanitario nazionale e I medici di famiglia, it says here. Really did help. Did help, and for a very simple reason. A pandemic it hits public health, sort of public health, not private health. So if private health is great, and we know how good it can be in America, but a pandemic by definition is something that hits the country and the nation as a whole. So if it hits the nation as a whole, you need a national health service. And that's, I think I hope that the Biden administration, I know that they are conscious of these, and changes will be, and Obamacare will be improved, because I think it's absolutely crucial.
Yeah. So moving to the current political situation, we wanted to share a video that you did recently about Matteo Renzi's decision to provoke a crisis, and you succinctly wrap into, in addition to political talents, an Italian politician today needs to have the 5 T's. And if Dario, you can show the video, then we can comment on it.
Nell'immagine alle mie spalle vedete 3 persone, 2 ascoltano, una parla. Qual è? Dalla bocca non si capisce per via delle mascherine, ma si capisce dalle mani. Sta parlando l'uomo al centro. Le 2 donne ai lati ascoltano. Hanno ascoltato per circa 45 minuti durante la conferenza stampa che annunciava le loro dimissioni, prima di prendere la parola. Poi le ministre Teresa Bellanova ed Elena Bonetti hanno detto la loro. A quel punto è ripartito Matteo Renzi. Una conferenza stampa torrenziale, iniziata con 50 minuti di ritardo sull'orario stabilito e durata 1 ora e mezza. Le domande dei giornalisti venivano raccolte 6, 7, 8 alla volta, e poi il senatore Renzi rispondeva tutto insieme. Conte, Trump, Salvini, i responsabili, i pieni poteri, le regole della democrazia, che non è un reality show, il recovery plan, il rispetto, le dimissioni, il re nudo. Talvolta la forma è sostanza, anche in politica. Ci sono molti modi di aprire una crisi di governo. Matteo Renzi ha appiccato l'incendio ammassando tutta la legna che ha trovato in cortile. Molte delle sue lamentele, espresse nelle scorse settimane, erano giustificate e infatti sono state accolte, ma il fastidio verso Giuseppe Conte evidentemente era troppo forte. L'ho detto, l'ho scritto, lo ripeto. Considero Matteo Renzi un talento politico naturale, ma il talento non basta. In politica, e non solo, occorrono altre T. tenacia, tolleranza, testa, tempismo. La tenacia per resistere in condizioni difficili, la testa per capire che l'Italia è stanca e preoccupata, la tolleranza verso gli alleati imperfetti, il tempismo, ovvero non si apre una crisi di governo nel mezzo di una pandemia. No, senatore Renzi.
So that was a great analysis. So how do you think Italy is faring in these later stages of the pandemic and in the midst of a political crisis? What are the next steps to take here?
I will answer in a moment, but let me say that this broadcast is part of is kind of a video column that I have for Corriere. I also have a written one, but the video is called Photosynthesis, and it's a weekly or bi-weekly, depends. And I know it was in Italian. You used the original, and I know I look at the Q&A on my screen, and someone has asked why if it's Italians in DC and the Italian Cultural Society, why are we doing this in English? And the answer, I know that Francesca already answered, because all the Italians here, including me, speak and understand English. And some of you out there, I know that would not, maybe you can put up with a little video in Italian, but could not follow a whole event in Italian. So I think it's only fair and that we use the language that everybody understands. I love to speak Italian, to be honest.
We're also encouraging our students and people who might not be Italian to join us and to learn Italian. And so we are here for everybody, both Italians and lovers of Italian culture.
Then I'll give you this answer in two languages, short and to the point. Risposta in italiano. Credo che la crisi di governo finirà presto e avremo il 67° governo in 75 anni, la media è 13 mesi e mezzo, probabilmente con le stesse persone, perché i parlamentari non vogliono le elezioni, molti di loro non ritornerebbero in Parlamento e uno si chiede perché abbiamo fatto in tempi di pandemia una crisi di governo. Non lo so, bisogna chiederlo a Matteo Renzi, che aveva ragione su alcuni punti. Il programma di spesa, il recovery plan per spendere i soldi europei era superficiale, l'ho letto tutto. La governance per spendere questi soldi era imprecisa, però non potevi farlo da dentro. L'Italia ha perso 20 giorni. Do you want to translate or why don't you summarize? Or
well,
shall I
he said, so Beppe says, why was there a crisi? He doesn't know. There shouldn't have been one. But you read the plan, and it was absolutely superficial and not robust enough to carry the country forward.
Well, no, we have to specify this. I read the government's, Giuseppe Conte's government's plan to how we spend the European money, the money of this Next Generation EU fund, recovery plan. I read the plan, it's 100 pages, and I read it all. And actually it's pretty shallow, and I was surprised. And also the governance, who decide how to spend that money was also pretty sloppy, to be honest. And so Matteo Renzi had a point, but why he didn't bring this point? He was part of the government. He was in the government majority. Why don't you do it from the inside?
Right.
Why do you have to topple the government you're part? And then we wasted 3 weeks. And so tempismo means timing. And Matteo Renzi is very ambitious and very bright, very smart, but his ego, I mean, if Matteo Renzi, I know him well personally, and he's really a political talent, but his ego is out of control. If Matteo Renzi were here with us today, the screen wouldn't be big enough. You'll be expanding. You'll be a Matteo Renzi everywhere. his ego, and that's his problem.
That's his problem.
And it's a shame, because I think that is going to be once if these downfalls comes earlier or come at some point, it will be because of this.
Well, I have to say, I have so many more questions that I prepared for you, but I'm mindful that we want to leave time for questions from our audience. But I do have one point that I want to make, and it comes from your chapter 15, which is about poetry. And you say, you can read if you could read the Italian, I'll read the English.
Okay, chapter 15 is the reason. You remember the book? I remind everyone the book is about 50 reasons to be Italian. Number 15 is perché non siamo tutti poeti, ma riconosciamo la poesia.
Because we're not all poets, but we recognize poetry. And I love that you took the time to focus on poetry, which is often forgotten or ignored or not valued as other forms of writing and art. But I just wanted to say, look at the hope and joy that Amanda Gurman gave the world reading her poem, The Hill We Must Climb, at Biden's inauguration. And I just thought that there is a joy and a hopefulness, which is a real theme in your book that also comes from poetry. And I read the poem at the end of chapter 15, which I understand you wrote about Italy. And I thought it would be nice if you could read it to us and maybe explain a little bit what you were thinking in English for our members.
I will. I have to point out that I didn't sign the poem. It's like it's there at the end of the chapter. So one has to sort of imagine that it's by the author of the book. It's just thrown there. And I have to say that I'm not a poet. And this was written in 2020. The little poem you're going to hear in a moment. And the poem before that I wrote it back in 1965 when I was 8. And then nothing. So a long gap. I'm not a poet. I stopped, and I think it's good for poetry and the world that I stopped writing poetry at the age of 8. But I felt like that I had to write this and about how Italy, how strange it was to write a book and try to draw a portrait of my own country at a time like this. I'll read it in Italian, and then I don't have a translation for this, I'm afraid. Sarà una bella estate, dopo una stranissima primavera. Potremo ordinare granite, prendere il sole che scappa di sera. Potremo bagnarci e asciugarci e non fare le cose di fretta. Potremo scoprire i sorrisi e vedere il mascara sudato. Potremo pensare all'autunno che arriva, bendato. L'Italia è una ragazza che corre, ma stavolta al passo più lento. Forse riusciamo a guardarla e a farle un ritratto col vento. It's about, and the last 4 is Italy is a girl who's running, but this time she has a slower pace. Maybe we can look at her and draw a portrait with the wind. And that's
beautiful.
And I wrote that in the summer. That's why l'autunno che arriva bendato, the fall was is here, is on us, is coming, and it's blinded. And in fact, it turned out to be a very blind and tough and unexpected fall for Italy in terms of shock and lockdowns and stuff. Is behind us now.
So it's beautiful.
We have a lot of questions.
Open to questions, and I actually see, there's one of mine which I think is really important that is coming in, is about the difference and the tension between the North and the South, which you talk about. Maybe you describe it as an old couple that's bickering.
That's true. I mean, the fact that the Italian South is not as wealthy and well organized as it should be is a national failure. I know the word I'm using, a collective failure for all Italians, all of Italy. We should all feel guilty for this, because the southern Italy is not as because it's a beautiful part of Europe, and the world is sort of blessed by God and weather and beauty, with great people, extremely smart people. Something is not working, and it's not time. We cannot now start explaining why. But next time, maybe when I come and we'll go into that chapter of the book, maybe with the help of some readers of mine, and many of them come from southern Italy, we'll explain. Many very bright Italians coming from southern Italy have left southern Italy for the north, for the rest of Europe, or maybe to come to America. And some of them are exploring, and that's great. But some are running away, and that's not good. And there are too many young people who are literally running away from habits and systems and things that they don't like. And that's not a good thing. Anyway, the questions, you want to have a look at those?
Yeah, I actually have some few questions from the students. Not only, but also the students of your new book, Neoitaliani. We have a class that is actually reading together. And some of the students, Donna, for instance, is asking, have you always felt this strong sense of pride for Italians, or are these feelings a result of the current world health crisis?
No, I've always been proud to be Italians, but it's the same, I guess, Donna, for you, for being America. I mean, you love your country like you love your family. Maybe your family or my family is not perfect, but we love it. And I think it's more, you said pride, is more a sense of belonging. It's great to belong somewhere. It doesn't mean it's the best place in the world, but it's my place. I was born here. And I traveled the world. I came to America probably, I don't know, 30, 40 times in my life. I was a correspondent in Washington, D.C., in London, I lived in Brussels. I was correspondent in Moscow. I went to China many times, but I belong here. I belong to Italy and Lombardy and Crema. And you can love Crema, Lombardy, Italy, Europe, being a great fan of America and the world. You don't have to choose, but it's good to start from somewhere. Like a tree has got roots. Okay, my roots are here, and yours are somewhere else. So you'll never find in my book saying that I love differences and diversity. I'm in people, in countries, in cultures, and that really, I think the word is great because of diversity. Otherwise, how boring it will be. You'll never find in my book, like, number one, number two, we are better, you're bad, we are good. I don't function like this, thanks God. You'll see it in my books.
Another question, always from the same class, ma questa volta in italiano. Qui dice, gli italiani sono stati in grado di affrontare le sfide di un lockdown attingendo ai loro forti legami familiari e usando il forte senso di comunità nelle città. Una questione importante è se la pandemia contribuirà anche a ridurre la sfiducia popolare nei confronti della politica e incoraggerà il governo a essere più attento alle esigenze della popolazione. Tu cosa ne pensi?
Penso che, rispondo in italiano, penso che sì, i legami familiari e sociali, anche le città più piccole, si sono organizzati. Io sono a Crema, in questo momento ho vissuto il lockdown di primavera, anche d'autunno, e la città si è organizzata, le persone sono veramente aiutate a vicenda, davvero, e non è una leggenda. Purtroppo la fiducia della politica che c'è stata, si è capito che la politica è importante, l'amministrazione è importante, le autorità sono importanti in momenti come questi, è stato un po' sprecato, perché durante l'autunno e l'inverno diciamo, quando dall'emergenza si è passata all'organizzazione, ci siamo rivelati meno bravi. Tutti, a cominciare dal nostro capo di governo, Giuseppe Conte, è stato sorprendentemente bravo durante l'emergenza e poi si è come o un po' rilassato, un po' distratto, un po' impaurito, ma è stato meno bravo durante la parte di ricostruzione e gli è mancato un po' di precisione e di concentrazione. Questo vale un po' per tutti. Va un po' per tutti, sì.
Bene, sì. Un'altra domanda, sempre dal Q&A questa volta. Lei ha osservato che oggi gli italiani possono essere fieri della mancanza di violenza politica nel paese. Lei è stato sorpreso del fatto che non si può più dire lo stesso degli Stati Uniti oggi? Michael from Washington DC.
In italiano la domanda?
Sì, in italiano.
Allora rispondo in italiano. No, la violenza politica non fa parte della cultura italiana. Noi abbiamo avuto un momento orribile con il terrorismo tra gli anni 70 e gli anni 80. Io ero giovane, me lo ricordo molto bene. Terribile, terribile. Anche in Francia e in Germania, ma forse in Italia è stato il più duro, insieme alla Spagna, per altri motivi. Però negli ultimi anni non c'è mai stato, anche i movimenti più antagonistici, Movimento 5 Stelle, la Lega, non ha mai minacciato, non è mai ricorsa alla violenza. Lo dice uno che li ha criticati entrambi, molto, sia il Movimento 5 Stelle che la Lega. Quindi questo è un merito dell'Italia e degli italiani. La violenza non ci piace. E questa è una cosa che dimentichiamo spesso, perché è successo invece, ci sono stati scontri anche in Francia, per esempio. Pensate a tutta la vicenda dei gilet gialli prima della pandemia. Negli Stati Uniti, quando dico che le nazioni viene fuori il sentimento profondo di una nazione, nella pancia dell'America, che io credo di conoscere, c'è un tratto libertario che viene dalla storia dell'America, che è legata per esempio al portare le armi, alla diffidenza verso il potere e soprattutto al potere distante, che è venuta fuori. La pandemia è a lie detector, è la macchina della verità e ha fatto venire fuori anche questo, purtroppo. Certo, poi se c'era un presidente che invece che unire divideva, invece che tranquillizzare spaventava, invece che rassicurare terrorizzava, è chiaro che poi è tutto più complicato. Le sue responsabilità sono molto grandi.
Maybe we could just do a little recap of that for the people who don't understand Italian. So
exactly, I wanted to connect actually with another question that is really similar, but this time in English. So this is talking about the event of January 6th, and she's asking what is the reaction. Deborah is asking what is the reaction of Italy of the violence that there was here, January 6th.
Disbelief. I know America, I know Washington, D.C., I know that those stairs, that building, I know it all. But I have pictures with my son, who at the time was 2 or 3. And so to me, it was extra shocking, but it was shocking for everyone. And it's absolutely, and I don't think some of my American friends and Italian friends and European friends didn't grasp the enormity of what happened. I mean, a president who denied the result of the democratic election for 2 months, not for an hour, because he's angry, and he just, 2 months denies and doesn't accept that he lost an election, and then incite his followers to march on Capitol Hill, the symbol of American democracy, the siege of American democracy. It didn't materialize, but these are the element of a golpe, of a coup d'etat. It didn't happen, thanks God, because America is strong enough to resist. But what Donald Trump has tried, is unforgivable, and it should not be forgiven. It's very important. Sorry for being so blunt.
Yeah, but, and to translate a little bit what you said before in Italian, when Italy was the situation in Italy and the violence in Italy, you were actually saying that Italy had a past of violence in for political reason, but now it's something that is not really unknown, and even party like Five Stars or more populistic party like Five Stars or Lega, they're not as violent, at least as we saw on January 6th.
No, they're not violent, period. They never threatened, they never used, they're not violent, period. That's that important too. And there are those parties I disagree with, and the League I've been criticizing, but it's a fact that violence is not part of the Italian political discourse or political confrontation. Violence, no.
Okay, going through something maybe a little bit lighter. So there's one of my reasons for loving Italy is the good food and wine. Are any of these 50 reasons to be Italian related to the appreciation of enjoyment of food and wine?
Of course, Sarah, let's go.
Okay.
We read from, let's say, 18 to 25.
Okay. Go.
To answer the question. 50 reasons to be Italian, we now skip to number 18 to 25. 18, perché ci divertiamo senza essere sbronzi.
Because we can have fun without getting filthy drunk.
19, perché vogliamo fare bella figura, ma sappiamo farci anche una bella risata.
Because we care about bella figura, but we also love a good laugh.
Perché Milano è politica e sensuale.
Because Milan is political and sensual.
21, perché Roma è una storia a sé.
Because Rome is a story all to itself.
22, perché il nord e il sud bisticciano come una vecchia coppia.
Because our north and our south fight like an old married couple.
23, perché la Sardegna profuma di pazienza.
Because Sardinia smells like patience.
24, perché il vino è un'educazione sentimentale e il caffè un armistizio.
Because wine is a sentimental education and espresso is a truce.
25, perché sappiamo distinto ciò cos'è buono e genuino.
Because we instinctively know what's good and genuine.
So to answer the question, your question, Dario, it's wine and food are at least in 3, 4, maybe 5 of the 50 reasons. Absolutely. I told you, I told you it's not a book about it. In a way, the emergency, the pandemic was the peg or the excuse, the motivation that really brought me, okay, I'm going to do it again. But 50 reasons to be Italians, they have to cover food and wine and relations and relation with the countryside and old towns and our houses and our schools and our doctors and our roads and our relations and our children and lots of stuff. It's all there, trust me, and fun.
And I'm sure also David will be happy with your answer. Another question, oh no, it's not, maybe it's not as light as this one. Once Indra Montanelli, when was asked about the future of Italy, it said that for Italy, there's no future, because a country that ignores its past or which is knows absolutely nothing and care not to know anything cannot have a tomorrow. Do you think that after this pandemic, Italy as a country still has a future?
Oh, Montanelli, who was my mentor and my maestro, and he loved paradox, and so don't take him too literally. Don't. In fact, he loved Italy a lot, and when he got really angry with Italy and the Italians, it's because he loved Italy and the Italians too much, and he was very much an Italian, Florentine and Tuscan, but no, I think there'll be a future. I think it's a turning point. I think it's absolutely crucial that we spend that money, the money that is coming from the European Union, both grants and loans, combination of the two. We are talking twice as much as the money of the Marshall Plan that came from the US after the Second World War. So we're talking real money. You really can change the outlook of the country. If we waste this opportunity, then yes, it's going to be a real problem. I don't think we will.
And what would you say to thousands of young Italians who are seriously considering leaving the country because they think they don't have a future there?
Well, I would say go, but it's a qualified go. I left Italy. I came to live in America. I went to live in Britain, Belgium, Moscow. It's important for you to see the world and make comparison, and you don't become parochial. Racist most of the time are stupid, ignorant people that know nothing because they haven't been anywhere. People who travel learn the complexities and the beauty of the differences of the world. So go, don't stay at home necessarily, but always consider coming back sooner or later. I did come back, and it's going to be time, because talking about roots, I mean, you are Italian. If you are listening to this, means you have some link to Italian. If you really couldn't care less about Italy, if you are so angry that you really don't want to hear about Italy anymore, you wouldn't be here now, listening to an Italian writing a book about Italy in the Italian Cultural Society and Italians in DC. I mean, if you really don't care about someone or something, you just pull down close the window. No, in fact, it's, but come back. You decide when. Go, come back, then go again, then come back. That's a good thing about.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion, actually. Go see the world and then come back. Yeah, after the Risorgimento, are there regions of Italy that still don't feel part of unified Italy? They don't feel it?
No, I wouldn't say so. A country, a great American writer whom I met personally, and actually I introduced him in Bologna 20 years ago when he received a prestigious award. His name is Don DeLillo. Don DeLillo, in the beginning of a great book called Underworld, the father and son, I think they're talking, and DeLillo is explaining what the country is about, and I quote, I don't remember the exact word, but he said that a country is made of, bad movies and televisions and schools and school buses and baseball. He loves baseball, and in Italy could be soccer, and it's about the profile of the mountains and the smell of the air. There are so many different things that make a country what it is.
Okay. Another question, this one come really close to you. It's Claudio Monticelli, and says, I'm native from the town of Crema, as Beppe, and I have been living in Washington, D.C. since 2006. My question is, what do you miss the most of Crema and Italy when you spend a lot of time around the world?
No, I like to ask Claudio what he misses, because I know many Crema people from Crema that live all over the world, and I know when I send them pictures of the Piazza del Duomo, which is right there next to me. It's like down, I overlook Piazza del Duomo, my office. It's so that's a good question. I like to ask him the questions. I miss a lot of things, my family, my everything. I went to nursery school here, to Asilo Montessori. That is one of the chapters that I really like in the book is about having Maria Montessori, and the asili and the nursery schools in Italy are really good. And mine is there, primary school, my friends, my son, who opened a great place near on a little lake on the river near Crema, and he's really good. And he's not a journalist, thanks God, and he's a farmer, and he opened this place with his friends and restaurants it's part of me, but I think I appreciate it so much because I was not here all the time. I never felt prisoner. I mean, if for 60, I'm 64 now, if for 64 years I couldn't or didn't want to go anywhere or couldn't go anywhere or wouldn't want to go anywhere, I don't think I would have the same attitude. I think I would probably feel a bit of a Crema, small town, a bit of a cage. I know many people who feel like for me, Crema is a great place to come back because I spend enough time. In fact, I spent in the last year, I spent more time in Crema in the last year, only when I was a teenager, a liceo, I spent so much time. But after that, I went to university. So last time I was 18 when I spent as much time in Crema. And but it's good. It's good to be back. My house I never sold my house in Crema, or simply I didn't want to cut those famous routes.
Mm-hmm. And Michael Farrell asks, in this anniversary year of Dante's death, we will be pleased that Gomorrah is perhaps the most popular Italian show in American television.
Well, I think it would be Roberto Saviano. He just joined Corriere. I've been with Corriere for 25 years, and Roberto Saviano, whom I know well, but we know each other, just joined the paper. I'm glad, I'm pleased. So that would be a good question for him. I think a clash of personality with Dante Alighieri and Roberto Saviano would be really interesting. Now, I think it's, I don't know. I mean, Roberto is a great writer. To be honest, I don't think it would be fair to challenge him to write another Divina Commedia, right? But for sure, Dante could write to have Dante as a co-author of Gomorrah and describing modern Naples. Oh, wow, that would be a bestseller.
There's another question from an anonymous that says, does it surprise you that so many descendants of Italian immigrants in the US have such a strong love for Italy and Italian culture?
No, because they know about the roots. You know, sometimes a memory, I realized that sometimes memories, once I asked, I think it was Lydia Bastianich in New York, few years ago, like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I don't remember, 10 years ago. I went to a restaurant, then we sat down for a chat. And I remember asking why very often, even the best Italian restaurants in America, they seem to be somehow proposing an Italian cuisine, which is always a little old-fashioned to us. And a point, if I remember well, but I think I do, was that, I mean, she had to deal with memories of many Italian American. And if you left Italy in the 40s, in the 30s, in the 50s, in the 60s, you bring with you certain memory, even memories of food, a memory of sensation, and those you miss those. So you have to respect the fact that that Italy is like, it's a time, it's in a way it happens to all countries. I think it's, if you look at the Italian representation from literature to TV shows to restaurants in the United States, you see different layers of Italy, like geological, like sometimes even when people speak, you give me 2 minutes and I can tell you when they left Italy. If they say, mega galattico, they left in the 80s, for sure. and so on and so forth. They say Ganzo, Ganzo, 70s, and so on and so forth. I could really spot, and it has to be respected. And I think it's normal. I have to say that I was given an award by the National Italian American Foundation in 2006. I remember Judge Anthony Scalia was there, and then there was Mel Brooks, and all sort of people that I didn't expect to see there, and Anne Hathaway, because of her fiancé at the time, and I could see that was really interesting for me to see the word of Italian Americans and their pride and in Italy. Pride doesn't mean knowledge, but who am I to judge? I mean, there are probably Americans or British living abroad, and their memories of their own country are as fuzzy, and it's okay, no problem.
I would read Stephen Decina's question also, no? That says, thank you, Beppe. I'm a huge fan. A question. Many of us Italo-Americani are children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of people who left poverty and worked hard to give their families stability and prosperity in America. What is the best thing that we can do to give back to Italy now that we have that stability and prosperity in America?
Well, you already are, because Dr. Anthony Fauci is Italian. It is true the former Secretary of State is also Italian, but we have a big variety of Italians all over the place. And you think of the movies in the name, you know the names. I don't need to. So, well, to answer your question is be interested, show that you care. Read, try to update your memories. Let's put it this way. It's great to have memories of the time when you left, or maybe when you go back in the summer to a certain lovely part of Italy, but try to be informed. I think to being informed about something or someone is a form of love. I think if we care about someone, we want to know through Facebook or maybe a phone call or WhatsApp, you name it, Instagram, what's happening to this person. And the same with the nation. So I'm not saying buy my books, although I'd be very pleased if you do. But there are many ways of being informed. Now it's so much easier than it was like 25 years ago. Now it's really a piece of cake to be informed. The web is there for that. I think being informed and not sort of settle for stereotypes. Every country is very vulnerable to stereotypes. America, for sure. Germany, Britain, Poland, Ireland, you name it. And I think a smart person uses stereotypes as a springboard. Stereotypes are there. It's silly to ignore them. Take them as a springboard to jump higher. And when you're high, you can see below and you see much more. Oh, I like this image. And maybe Sara and Francesca, I think we should stop here because I won't find a better image of these. The stereotype is
I would also add, join the Italian Cultural Society and help us to promote this beautiful culture. And promoting the culture, we promote the country and these industries, these products, this design and fashion. And so we are helping Italy, promoting what's good in Italy, especially what's positive. We try to stay on the positive.
Did you see those?
Yeah.
They're always behind my desk. It's not big. And important, if you like Italy and you want to bring the best of Italy to America, this is a good way to do it. A smile.
Oh, exactly. That's right.
The Italian smile. it's what really makes a big difference, and it's like our trademark. Keep smiling. Smile helps to smooth relations. At a time like this, a smile can go a long way.
I agree. And Dario, we can't forget Silvana. Silvana De Luca is one of our instructors. They are reading La Bella Figura, if I'm correct.
Adesso mi sentite? Solamente due commenti velocissimi. Cioè io sto leggendo appunto la testa degli italiani. Oh, better speak English. I'm reading La Testa degli Italiani, and I must say that the students tell me that they're looking forward those 2 hours where we can all laugh together. And there were, you know, 2 comments that actually, of the many that I received from them, are these. First of all, how can you write so well, so articulate, but at the same time so easily, in a way that is easy for everybody to understand? And second, if you have studied psychology at some point in your life, because you know, you understand so well the head of the Italians.
No, I studied law, but I love anthropology. But if La Testa degli Italiani, instead of La Testa degli Italiani or La Bella Figura, if the title was like a study in cross-cultural relation, American, Italy, whatever, I would sell 10 copies instead of that book. That book, I think I sold 500,000. So
that's right.
That's so anthropology is a good thing is a great science, but I'm a writer, I'm not an academic, so I prefer to hide what I know. And second, you ask me, thank you very much, you ask him, how comes I write well? Is that correct?
And how you write so well, but at the same time quite easily to understand, for someone who is learning.
The same, if you look at the tennis player or a basketball player, or everything in every part, you know, like a painter or a musician, or if they are good, it seems that whatever they do comes so easy, but that ease, it comes from a lot of exercise, struggle, trying and mistakes and retrying. But if you're good, that shouldn't show. That's so right. It seems really simple. If you take a good tennis player, say, oh, everybody could do that. It's so easy. Open your arm, bang, and no, that maybe there are 25 years of training and technique behind that. But technique and struggle and strain and difficulties and the commitment, they shouldn't show. Because the reader, in my case, or the spectator or whatever, doesn't deserve that. The reader deserves simplicity and so on and so forth. How could I do that? Why do I write well? Thank you. I don't know. I hope I write well, but let's put it this way. Look at me. You have the video. Silvana, I have to say you have a form of pop art instead of
because that's my daughter's painting.
No, keep it there. It's interesting.
Pop art,
pop art there. But you can see me, right?
I can see you very well. Yes.
Okay. As you can see, I'm not good looking. I can tell you, I cannot play a musical instrument. Sport, I tried everything. I'm average on everything, from basketball to soccer to motorcycling, you name it. One thing I do well, please. There is one thing I can do. So I think I'm sure you understand that maybe there is a little talent, and I recognize it soon enough, and I worked on that.
Yeah.
If I wanted to be honest, I don't think my career would have been really brilliant, to be honest.
I can only add just a comment. You know, the students all traveled extensively to Italy, and they now with the Testa degli Italiani, they say everything is so true. Like the other day was the finding a bathroom in a restaurant, and it was, and we laughed for half an hour. I mean, for the 2 hours we laugh, 1 hour is spent laughing, and the other hour is spending doing exercises and commenting on the book.
Thank you, Silvana.
So we thank you very, very much.
I'm really pleased. I'm pleased that what I did is makes people a little happier. Nowadays, it's so important.
Yes, yes.
I think it's an hour and a half. I'm happy to be with you and stay all night, but my motto is meno è meglio, which is not less is more. Is less is better, actually. Meno è meglio is my motto. So
Yeah.
I think, but I leave it to Francesca and Sara.
See, thank you, Beppe, for sharing this this pleasant hour and a half with us. Thank you, Sara. Before saying goodbye, I just wanted to remind everyone that on our website you can read about our classes. So you see, we have also like book club kind classes. We learn Dante, we go deep into the Italian culture, cinema, we study Latin, even yoga in Italian, and also we have classes for beginners to start this adventure of learn Italian. And on the event side, our next event on February will be a virtual Festa di Carnevale on February 21st. And with March, we will start to celebrate Dante Alighieri in his anniversary of 700th anniversary from his death. And so thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for being part of this family. Thank you for helping us in promoting Italian culture and language. Arrivederci a tutti.
Ciao. Grazie a tutti. Ciao Beppe. Ciao Francesca. Ciao.
Grazie Beppe. And yes, smiling.